Hey, Gerald, did you know that the star of Emily in Paris is Phil Collins' daughter?
I did not know that.
I just found that out today. Welcome into another edition of the PHNX Sun Show. I'm Espo. That's Gerald running a two-man game today. And Gerald, I got to get something off my chest.
Okay.
We're going to talk about, guys the Suns could look at to kind of fix potential roster deficiencies. We'll get into that.
Sure.
But I got to get this off my chest. Over the weekend, the Detroit Lions were in town. They played the Arizona Cardinals out at State Farm Stadium. And Devin Booker showed up and was sitting close to the field and happened to be wearing a Detroit Lions hat. Nothing gaudy, wasn't dressed in all Lions gear, but was wearing a Lions hat. And it caused an uproar on social and the internet about Devin Booker, the hometown hero here, rooting for a team that came to town to play the Cardinals. And I got to say, if you were sitting out there complaining about this, get a life, all right? Devin Booker grew up in Detroit. Just like you guys, may have grown up in Phoenix and are fans of the Suns and the Cardinals. And if you moved anywhere else for work, you'd still be fans of those teams, I would think. I'd imagine so. So stop if you're complaining about that, because this is the dumbest complaint I have ever heard. Devin Booker likes the Detroit Lions. He likes the Detroit Red Wings, all right? But he's still a Phoenix Sun and will be the greatest Phoenix Sun. And it doesn't matter that he likes the teams he grew up liking. Get over it.
I mean, I disagree. First of all, how dare he support his childhood team? That's just indefensible.
Now that's the type of take
crazy.
We like, Gerald.
Gerald,
no,
let's light that fire.
Set.
No, no, for real though, like, this is not that big of a deal. I mean, like Mikhail, he was very open here, Mikhail Bridges, about rooting for the Rams in the NFL and the Phillies on the baseball side. And
Which
I know
is
he
just
was like,
wild, honestly wild.
Yeah, like crazy
he owned
stuff.
It, though. Like,
he did.
I
he
love
owned it.
that.
But like you even said, wasn't the hat like the logo was really small?
Yeah, it was really
You couldn't
tiny.
even really
He
see
wasn't
it.
wearing a Lions shirt. So tiny, in fact, that somebody said basically, oh, it's cool that he went to root for the Lions but didn't wear any Lions gear. It was one of the media members. And somebody had to point out, no, that tiny logo says Detroit Lions on it. Like, who cares?
It's dumb.
Yeah.
Don't be dumb.
Yeah.
That's all I got for you on that one. It's pretty cut and dry.
Yeah. Don't be dumb, especially when it comes to Devin Booker, all right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, when it comes to anybody, but in particular Devin Booker and that. I don't care if he rooted for the Detroit Lions. Let's talk about, we've discussed a lot that there are some deficiencies on the Suns roster. This is not a perfect roster. Nobody's kidding themselves. I think there's very few that are even close to it in the NBA, but, we've talked about athletic wing. We've talked about potential backup center or different starting center, maybe, a power forward. There's things that this team can use. And we're going to go through the exercise today of who could potentially be available if the Suns decide that they have to fill one of those holes, or in the off chance, knock on wood, touch metal, somebody gets injured. So we're going to take a look at the remaining free agents to start here, Gerald. And this is like when you go to the buffet after hours and there's a few things left, but nothing overly great.
Yeah, looking at the list, we got Jay Crowder, Robert Covington, Justin Holiday, Doug McDermott, O'Shea Brissett, Bismack Biyombo, Reggie Bullock, Daniel House Jr., Danilo Gallinari, and Troy Brown were just some of the ones that stood out, especially in terms of if you're looking at the Suns roster. We've talked about this, could use another wing. These are kind of the guys that are left that are available. Jetty Osman did sign somewhere overseas, so that's the reason he's not on the list, for those of you who are wondering, because we have talked about him before. But Yeah, I'm looking at this list, and there are a couple of guys that I'm like, okay, I could maybe see a place for them if somebody gets hurt, if we need another 3-and-D wing to play minimal minutes. But these are kind of, they would be in the third string unit for a reason. They would be kind of insurance policies more than anything. And to me, I kind of understand why the Suns would rather just have an open roster spot. If you look at all these guys on the list, they're not going to play. If they signed with the Suns, they wouldn't play unless there was an injury. So I think you'd rather just maintain that flexibility, either fill it with one of your two-way guys if somebody shows out in the G League, or you have that flexibility in a trade like we talked about. You send one guy out and bring two in return as long as the money works.
So when you look at Jay Crowder, you're just at the point where you think he's kind of crossed over that threshold of being somebody that can really offer something to a team?
I feel like he's getting close, and it could just be a Milwaukee thing, but I mean, they could have probably used some solid 3-and-D wing play, and he didn't get as many minutes as you would think. And I don't know. I feel like he's pretty close. And we felt that when, his last couple of years here, we were like, okay, it's time for Cam Johnson to start. This guy needs to come off the bench. He didn't want to embrace a bench role. Now that would very much be his role. But yeah, I feel like we might be past that point. It would be kind of a feel-good thing just to have a familiar face back, a guy that Book really likes and that the fan base connected with while he was here. But outside of that on the court, I don't know if he would be able to contribute very much.
Is Covington kind of in that same boat for you? Is that why he's not somebody you'd act on in the immediate?
Yeah, there's obviously the attraction of having another option as a small ball 5 because he played that a lot during his time with Houston and various points throughout his career. The defensive-minded approach that he brings is good too, but again, this is another guy that hasn't really been able to carve out a consistent role over his last couple of teams, the last few seasons. And the 3-ball has always been shaky. It was good during the prime of his career, but at this point, he's basically more of a defensive-minded Jay Crowder who couldn't shoot. And the fact that, if he can't even get on the court in a defensive-minded role, that's probably not a good sign.
Yeah. Okay. So I appreciate Axel. They've been around in our chat a lot, said some nice things, but I am going to take umbrage with the fact that they put up D Rose right now.
No.
By Memphis.
We want nothing to do with that guy.
Well, also, is this just like a reflex now that there's a point guard that hits the market? Like Suns point guard, and it's like no, there's two here now. There's no need, right?
We have better players at the point guard spot and the backup point guard spot than Derrick Rose at this point. So
he would be the 5th point guard on the roster.
Yeah.
Behind Book, Beal, Tyus, and Monte.
I think he might be 6 because I think Colin Gillespie might actually at this point.
I would rather see Colin Gillespie minutes at this rate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm not even joking.
Yeah. I think this is a list of like I said, a lot of guys that if you have a injury or a need that arises during training camp, that you could look at a couple of these guys and potentially, bring them in, but break glass in case of emergency list. And Axel says, for the culture, Espo, for the culture in regards to D Rose. And I don't know what culture, but do your D Rose research. I'll say on that front.
We're good.
Not a culture that we maybe want to bring on here. What do you guys feel about O'Shea Brissett? A lot of people in the chat are saying they wouldn't mind O'Shea Brissett.
I wouldn't mind taking a flyer on him. It was only a couple of years ago that he looked like a very strong young player for the Pacers and then got kind of moved around a little bit. I wouldn't mind. I wouldn't have very high hopes for him, really. Again, this is another guy that you figure most of the guys on this list will probably be available a couple weeks, couple months from now. So like you said, if you absolutely need somebody and you really can't fill it elsewhere, then you can look at these guys. But as of right now, like I said, I'd rather go into the season with that roster spot flexibility.
So is it simply that there's no guy on the open market that really jumps out to you why you want to go in with that roster spot? Because to me, I know people talk, and we'll get into trade possibilities, but people talk, a 2-for-1 deal potentially. And I'm like, is there really going to be a 2-for-1 that's going to get you 2 guys that'll have an impact on this roster. You're going to have to be very creative to get to that point. I actually don't mind the idea of just keeping it open until we get to buyout season. If no deal materializes, and just having that as an available option to you without having to cut somebody.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good call. I will say that expectations for the buyout market should be tempered, not just looking at our own past history, but across the league. Most guys that sign a buyout deal are typically not playoff rotation type guys. So expectations should be kind of like we saw with Terrence Ross and guys like that. Like, maybe they could get some minutes. Maybe they should at some point if the situation calls for it. But more than likely, they're not going to be moving the needle very much one way or the other.
Axel, Walker Kessler and Jordan Clarkson for Nurkic and picks. You make the call, and we'll see if it can happen.
That'd be fantastic if Utah did that.
Yeah, you definitely have to put in that 2031, I'd imagine, if you're going to get there. We got plenty of trades to talk about on the other side. There's going to be some names that you look at and you go, oh my gosh, I can't believe that we're actually talking about these guys as a possibility. I'm just going to sit here silently a little longer and see if Eric actually does.
I was like, there's no way that's the ad setup, right?
Let's talk about our friends over at Gila River Resorts and Casinos. They've got the best in the business here in the desert. You know what? I'd say in any desert. Yeah, and I know what that includes. All right. They've got the best casino and resorts across the valley. There are 4 locations. Wild Horse Pass, Lone Butte, V Kiva, and Santan Mountain are the best the valley has to offer. And you know what? I love their lounges and their restaurants, right? Obviously, I'm a man who enjoys food. It's pretty obvious. And I like a good drink as well. And they've got you covered no matter if you want casual or high end. They've got everything that you could want out there, especially at Wild Horse Pass. You got to check out everything they have out there. They have unprecedented entertainment and excitement that you won't find anywhere else in the desert. They set the bar so high you can't get over it. Others can't get over it. I mean, you'll just love it. So you do you at Gila River Resorts and Casinos. Visit playathila.com for more details. And our friends at Bet365, it is never ordinary. They've got 90 million worldwide users. You know what that means? They know how to run a sports betting app like nobody else's. You got to get in to Bet365, and when you sign up using our promo code PHNX365, you're going to get 2 different options when you deposit $10. You can get the bet and get offer, where you can place a $5 bet or more and get 200 in bonus bets, or the first bet safety net offer by placing a bet up to $1,000. If you lose on that qualifying bet, you're going to get your money back in bonus bets. It is just that easy. Make sure to check out the early payouts as well. If your team in the NBA goes up by 20 at any point, you're going to win that bet. So download the Bet365 app. Use that promo code PHNX365 when you sign up. Choose your offer and find out why, whatever the moment, it's never ordinary with Bet365. Must be 21 and older. Phoenix, physically located in Arizona. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call 1-800-NEXT-STEP. Text NEXT STEP to 53342 or visit problemgambling.az.gov. We mentioned it before the break, and there's some potential deals that the Suns can make. They set up their off season in a way that solidified the present, but gave them options to potentially make changes in the future. Look, we'll start with Jusuf Nurkic and talk about this. As it is the largest contract that you're likely going to consider moving, because I think the big 3 are off the table in any of these discussions this season. So Nurk at $18.125 million is kind of the starting point where you look at, and there's a group of guys that are potentially available that you could get with this that could help the Suns.
Yeah, so just to rattle through a couple here, We got Harrison Barnes at 18 million. We got Bogdanovich at 17.3, Rui Hachimura at 17, Zach Collins at 16.7, Karis LeVert at 16.6, and Lou Dort at 16.5. Those are a couple of guys that are right within that range there that I looked at. The problem, though, with a lot of these guys, as you might notice when I was reading off their names, not a lot of them are centers. It's pretty much just Zach Collins. So if you're giving up your starting center and you are not getting a starting center in return, you are now creating a hole there. And I know a lot of people are low on Nurkic, but the drop off from Nurk to either Mason Plumlee or a rookie in Oso Ighodaro at that starting center spot would be pretty severe for a team that wants to compete for a championship. So if you were to make a move like this and find a team that isn't hampered by the apron, restrictions and could actually take back more money, you would then have to make a separate move, probably involving Grayson, to bring in a starting caliber center. So it's tough here because a guy like Harrison Barnes, like if the Spurs season, if they're not as competitive as we think they might be, maybe Harrison Barnes becomes a guy that you flip at the trade deadline. Okay, you would love to have a Harrison Barnes if you're the Suns, have a guy that could play the 4 or the 3 there, be a little bit of a 3-and-D guy. But then what are you doing with that starting center spot? It's a little bit tougher to figure that out.
Well, and you're definitely not going to put Mason Plumlee at that spot because there's just going to be – he can't handle those kind of minutes. And you're right. If you're going to do one of the a move with Nurk, there's multiple moves I think you have to make with some of these other guys on the list that we're going to talk about. But I look at this and why are the Spurs going to take Nurk? Like you're just trading one large salary for another unless you throw a pick in. And is Harrison Barnes really worth throwing a pick in? I mean, you look at
maybe a second.
You think I get that he's still efficient from deep, but an $18 million price tag, guy on the kind of a back half of thing.
That sort of thing would only be if you have another separate deal lined up for a guy that you view as a bona fide improvement at the center spot over Nurk. Yeah. And that's like a dream scenario because like we've talked about, I don't know that deal's out there. Like there aren't centers that are making less than 18 million or less than 15.6 million that will be on the trade market that are definitive upgrades over Nurk. Like that's a lot of different boxes you have to check there. And it's why we've talked for months about how, like, yes, we understand people want an upgrade over Nurk. They want an upgrade at the center spot. But in terms of realistically how you could go about getting one, I don't know that that's out there.
No, I think you're right. I look at this list and, Lou Dort would be great, but are the Thunder really going to move on from him for Jusuf Nurkic? Bogdanovich, I would love to finally bring him to Phoenix, the former draft pick, and I think he could be intriguing. But again, a rebuilding Hawks team does, unless you're including maybe that 2031 pick, does that move the needle and does it make you that much better? I'm not sure, and that's where a lot of this is going to be tough, right? Because you move one piece, you're probably creating another deficiency, somewhere else. So how are you patching everything throughout this? I think it's a no-go. I don't think Nurk goes anywhere this year.
I don't either, to be honest with you. Like, and there are other guys on this list that we'll talk about when we get to Grayson's price range that technically would also work for Nurk. These were just the ones that were in between, Nurk's and Grayson in that threshold there. But there aren't a ton of options in terms of how you're going to trade Nurk and still plug up that 5 spot.
Well, and I mean, let's be realistic. I think the only way Nurk becomes expendable is if Oso Ighodaro somehow shocks the world and becomes a force for this team. And even then, can you really put your hopes on a rookie's shoulders and try to move a Nurk? I think he's here at least till this offseason. I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, because you got to remember with Nurk too, he basically is the guy that's holding your rebounding together with duct tape.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
Like this is the guy that was accountable for most of your rebounding last year. And I don't think you can take that lightly, because I don't think this team's going to vastly improve on the boards with any of the moves that they made. So in turn, you can't get rid of your best rebounder without some kind of idea on how to fix that. And a Harrison Barnes definitely isn't that answer, only averaging 3 a game last year. So I think you really got to keep that in mind. So,
and I know people get frustrated with Nurk, and there are definitely things about his game that are left to be desired, especially when it comes to the playoffs. But there was a period of time in the season where it was like, they can't win without Jusuf Nurkic, and they literally didn't. I think he had missed like 4 or 5 games on the season at a certain point, and they lost every single one.
Right.
So regular season, at least, he's a good connector. He's a good rebounder. Hopefully he doesn't break all of his fingers again and become a poor free throw shooter and finish poorly inside the paint. Hopefully he can improve on that. But he is a good connector and a good piece for this team, at least in the regular season.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, his trade value is not very high right now.
No.
So it's not like we can, throw out trade targets in his salary range all we want. Most of these guys that we put on the list, the other team would be like, why? You got to throw something else in there. We can't just take Nurk back for this guy.
Unless they had some catastrophic injury at center and they got desperate for it. But I just don't see that. Grayson Allen, now this is a guy I think certainly could have some value across the league when it comes to if the Suns are looking to fill some of their deficiencies. Another guy, though, if you move him from the equation, you're creating another deficiency in terms of a high quality 3-point shooter, which we've talked about ad nauseum about how much they need to get up more 3-point shots. Obviously Grayson making that $15.6 million that he signed in that extension is trade eligible middle of October, so just a few weeks away. And you've put together a list, an extensive list here, but what were a few of the guys that really stood out for you?
Yeah, I mean, one that's interesting for salary cap reasons is Denny Avdia. He makes the exact same amount as Grayson Allen to the dollar, so they would technically be interchangeable if they made a move, but the Blazers aren't going to give up a young player that they just acquired for Grayson, who's a little bit older. Looking at the list, like, if you're looking for center alternatives, maybe an Isaiah Stewart at $15 million. If you want wing help, like a Dorian Finney-Smith on the Nets at $14.9 million, that stands out. Someone in the chat brought up Mitchell Robinson. He makes $14.3 million, but the injury stuff is rough there. Someone also brought up Robert Williams III. He makes $12.4 million, but again, injury stuff is very concerning with him. It's tough finding potential guys that make sense, because like you said, if you trade Grayson, you are losing something on the 3-point front, but in terms of depth, like, we do have a ton of depth at the 2-guard spot, so it's not like the end of the world if you trade Grayson, and he is kind of their number one asset. We can look at, like, if you really want a center upgrade, Wendell Carter Jr., Ivica Zubac are the ones that stand out.
Wendell Carter Jr. is very intriguing to me because he kind of fits he can be that stretch center for you in a Bud system. He is a good shooter, 52.5% overall, 37.4% from deep, has that $12 million contract, so even a little less than what you're looking at for Grayson. But I mean, if you're looking at multiple moves, this could be the guy that could answer your center problem if you decide you very much do need a stretch. And then you could look at a subsequent move with a Nurk where maybe you're getting a guy that can help fill some of your other needs there. It's intriguing. Would I do it? I don't know. The health questions come into play with Wendell Carter Jr. And do I feel like his impact would be that much more than what I'm getting from Grayson Allen? I'm hesitant because we saw what Grayson can do.
So I think I'm torn on this one as well, because I don't know that the Magic would do this, because they do have some center depth with Goga Bitadze and Mo Wagner, but like, this is their starting center. And I know he only played 55 games last year, but he's their starting center. The other thing that worries me, he only played 55 games last year. Yeah. Like, this is a guy that, can you rely on him health-wise? Because throughout his career, he hasn't played a ton of games every season. He does bring the floor spacing component a little bit, not on high volume, but a little bit. And I think he would hold up better in a playoff matchup than maybe Nurk would, as a defensive guy that can stay on the floor. Truthfully, I would rather, if they were to make a move like this, and I know that Grayson Allen is a better player than Ivica Zubac, but if you're looking for a center at Zubac, he's one of the more underrated centers in the league. He just signed that extension, so I'm not sure when he's trade eligible. It wouldn't be for a while, but averaged about 12 points, 9 rebounds, just over a block a game, shot 65%, missed 14 games last year, so not too many. And he is a good center in the drop. Like, he doesn't provide the floor spacing component that we're used to with Mike Budenholzer centers, but he would be able to operate in a drop well, which is what Budenholzer did well with Brook Lopez in Milwaukee. So if you're looking for a guy that would be a Nurk upgrade in terms of being able to stay on the floor, Zubac is that guy, but they did just sign him to the extension, so they would probably want to keep him. And I think the Clippers are set on the wings and with guards right now.
I think that would be predicated on the Clippers, the bottom just falling out.
Yes, going belly up.
Yeah, like you'd wind up having Kawhi with another injury-riddled season, which you don't hope for that, and them just basically going, okay, we've crashed ashore. This is done with this particular group, and then if they're in that spot, does Grayson really move the needle? Like, is that really a guy that helps set you up for what potentially could be a rebuild, or are you just looking at it as a retool since you still will have Kawhi? I think Clippers are the most intriguing group in the NBA this year. It is so much a boom or bust where they may be in a spot where they're playing so well they wouldn't even consider dealing a guy, but I can believe just as well that they'd be in a horrible spot and be willing to deal him at that time as well.
And we should point out too that, like, even if the bottom does fall out, the Clippers center depth is rough because they lost Daniel Tice, they lost Mason Plumlee. Obviously, we got him. So I don't know. Would they trade their only center on the roster? The bottom would really have to fall out, and they'd have to make some other moves there. But
a team that the bottom already has kind of fallen out on, the Nets. Another name that you had in this group, Dorian Finney-Smith.
Yes,
on that list.
Yeah, he's a guy that if he plays well the first half of the season, and he looks more like Dorian Finney-Smith that we saw with the Mavs and in that playoff series where the dude just couldn't miss, it felt like, and was playing great defense, that would be a guy that, okay, I could consider that, because he, as much as I like Grayson, and I still think Grayson's the better player at this point, I think he addresses more of what this team specifically needs. But if you look at his production with the Nets the last couple seasons, the efficiency's fallen off, and yes, the Nets have been kind of a train wreck, so you got to factor that in there. But it doesn't look like the same DFS that we saw in Dallas, which is the problem for me if you were to give up Grayson. Someone in the chat asked earlier if DFS and Day'Ron Sharpe would work for Grayson. It would not. I think with the salary amounts, I'm not even sure that it would work for Nurkic at this point. I think it's just above, if you combine their two salaries, I think it's just above Nurk's $18.1 million. I would have to double check on that. But yeah, DFS is an interesting one. He's a guy that I'm going to keep an eye on because, like a lot of these guys, we enter a season thinking one thing about them, and then a couple months in, we're like, oh, he's having a great season, or oh, they're having a terrible season. So all of these players' value is going to change over the coming months.
Yeah, look, I've looked at this. I mean, it could be interesting if the Bucks wanted to deal to Bobby Portis, and it was like, hey, we both have a need, and you flop Portis for Grayson, and we know what Portis was able to do with Coach Bud. But overall, I want nothing to do with trading Grayson Allen. At least at this moment in time, I think Grayson can be an integral part of what they're trying to do. And there are a handful of other guys, though, on the roster, thanks to savvy moves this offseason, that the Suns could potentially look at moving, and we'll talk about those after the break. Was that a better tease there, Eric?
I think you pretty much nailed that one.
Right,
thanks.
You know what pretty much nails it? Our friends at Circle K. I was there today because I drove my car far too long without getting gas. I think I was like 3 miles from empty, and I pulled in to my favorite Circle K on my way to work, and I got my car filled up. I got myself something to drink, and I saved on both. Just going to tell you that. I saved 5 cents because I'm at that ESPO level on the gas, and then I got a Polar Pop for 79 cents. And you know how I did it? Because I'm part of the inner circle. If you guys haven't signed up, it's easy. Download their app, enter your email and your phone number, and you are fully enrolled. You're going to get 25 cents per gallon off your first 5 fill-ups. But that's not all. You're going to get 3 cents off your gas after that, and then when you get to the ESPO level, 5 cents, plus plenty of other exclusive deals and discounts. And again, that's not all. You're going to get 5 free Polar Pops as well when you sign up. Join the Inner Circle today for free by downloading the Circle K app. Terms and conditions apply at participating locations. Visit CircleK.com for details. All right, I'm a hat guy. You know it. I'm not bald. I'm not like some guys. I'm not hiding a receding hairline. I just love myself some hats. And our friends at Branded Bills became part of the PHNX family. And I got to tell you, I loved their hats before, but now I am all in because I'm using that promo code PHNX and saving 20% off my hats. This is one of my favorite hats. It's the black on black state outline with the state flag in it. I got a purple and teal one coming. ASU has some fantastic hats. I don't want that thing. Okay, you threw it at Gerald. They've got some fantastic Branded Bill ASU hats, U of A hats, GCU as well on their website. And if you go out to the Suns Arena, they have custom Suns hats as well. They're from Mesa, just like me, which means they're amazing. So head to brandedbills.com, use the promo code PHNX for 20% off your first order. We're just throwing hats at poor Gerald. Look at that as well. So that is everything you need to know about hats. If you guys want to keep throwing stuff at Gerald, go ahead. If you're just joining us, go back and watch why we were throwing things at Gerald. I did mention a couple other guys are potential guys that the Suns may trade thanks to savvy moves this offseason. And one of them was Royce O'Neale, who they re-signed. Some said maybe slightly overpaid as part of it, but he is sitting at 9.85 or 875 in his salary there. So there are a group of guys that kind of align with what his salary is. And one, I'm just going to tell you right off the bat, if you're looking for center depth, there's some options here, including my friend Jock Landale.
Yeah, there is. I mean, Jock is at $8 million. I feel like if you are going to trade for a center, though, and this is no disrespect to Jock, it needs to be someone that can play above Nurk.
I agree.
I think we're good on the backup centers position.
Hey, you watch your mouth.
But I feel like we need a starting caliber guy. If we're looking at Royce O'Neale, Agoga Batadze, he was a guy that was on my list last year. He makes $9.1 million, just got re-signed, so he won't be trade eligible for a little bit. But if you want wing depth, like Kyle Anderson, $8.8 million, and Derek Jones Jr., who just signed with the Clippers, got a neat little payday after his run with the Mavs. He put up 8.6 points per game. He brings athleticism. He's a very committed, tenacious defender. The 3-point shooting is what I would be looking at, and I'm struggling to make sense of. The guy shoots 34% from 3, has never historically been a good 3-point shooter really in his career, and then he goes on this playoff run where he shoots the lights out throughout their run to the finals. Obviously, small sample size there compared to what we've seen throughout his career. But if the 3-point shot somehow is sustainable over a longer period of time, that's a legitimate athletic 3-and-D wing, which is something the Suns could use more of. Bottom would have to fall out in LA,
yeah, but I also look at it, and I have so many questions about airplane mode. I know he's a much different player than when he was here in Phoenix. His game has grown. He still has some of that athleticism, but I don't know that is that much of an upgrade from Royce, in terms of what I'm getting that I make that move. I think he's slightly better, but are there other options if I throw in some draft sweetener, those kind of things that maybe are a little bit more intriguing?
Jones is better defensively. He's more athletic. He's more of a cutter, slicer, alley-oop threat on the wing, which we don't. Yeah, I mean, we have Ryan Dunn, so there is that. But offensively would be the question. Like, if the 3-point shot doesn't hold up, and even if it does, like Royce is a good connector. He's a good passer.
Yeah.
He's a smart player, knows where to move the ball. He brings zero threat inside the 3-point line, really. It's all beyond. But they don't need him to be too much more than that. So Derrick Jones Jr. would bring a different look on offense. He would bring more of a cutting, slashing kind of threat, but the 3-ball would be a big question mark.
Well, yeah, my fear is if that 3-ball doesn't fall, you move him, then you've got another Royce O'Neale, Josh Okogie guy that maybe doesn't see the floor.
Yeah.
Because offensively he can't get it done, even though he's better defensively than what you traded. And again, this is a lot of on the margin stuff, right? Trying to figure out, is there something that you could slightly get better
right
in moving one of these guys? And to me, this is all predicated on, and I know this is a thought exercise, but this is all predicated on, how do you play between October 23rd and December 25th? Because to me, those first 2 months are going to determine, are you feeling like this team is where it needs to be?
Right.
Or do you need some kind of shakeup to shock the system?
Yeah.
Right? Because if they're sitting at 500 like they were last Christmas, there's so much on the line this year. You made the coaching change. At that point, I think you start to look at, is changing some of these things on the margins. Can we get a different energy? Can we get a slightly different look on one end of the court if that's what's holding you back, and you make those moves? I don't think there's anything imminent with this group, but I think it very much is, where are you sitting by the time that Christmas Day game against the Nuggets comes? And that's your litmus test, because last Christmas was where we all kind of knew this wasn't going to end where you wanted it to end.
Yeah. I mean, I hesitate to say that, though, because last Christmas we knew it was going poorly, and then they had their best 6-week stretch of the season afterwards. But I do understand your point in that, like, this group has a lot invested in this roster. Like, it's the most expensive roster in the NBA. So if 2 months in you're sitting at 500 like last year, and it's not because Devin Booker and Kevin Durant have missed most of the season, then yeah, you are in a little bit of trouble. You are in self-evaluation mode, and you are scanning. They're always scanning for deals. All of these teams are always on the radar. But yeah, to your point, this is just an exercise to kind of maybe identify early targets that might make sense a couple months into the season. And we can look at the one that is interesting to me, and this, most of these guys will fit in with Royce O'Neale's salary range, but we've talked a lot about Josh Okogie. He makes $8.2 million. He feels like the guy that is not necessarily locked into a rotation spot, and especially with the way that they set up his contract, could be a guy that they look to flip if some of these names that we're talking about become available.
Yeah, I certainly think it's intriguing. One last name that you would list on Royce that I think would be hilarious is Al Horford, though, because again, that man was in college when I was in college, and that was a very, very, very long time ago.
And what's funny is the Celtics would never trade Al Horford because they love him there.
Yeah, but yeah, I think you're right though, with Josh Okogie at that $8.25 million contract. We all knew that was an overpay, and that's not a slight on Josh Okogie. That was higher than the market would have dictated what Josh Okogie would have went for. But yeah, you take the money when it's offered you, full well knowing that this may be part of it. You know, that you may be in that trade fodder. But a name that sticks out to me, again, if you're looking for center help, is that Kevon Looney number there, sitting at $8 million. And I know the numbers aren't spectacular when you look at it, but 4.5 points, 5.7 rebounds, 1.8 assists on 59.7% field goal percentage. But he's always intrigued me, and I think he could be a guy that if you're trading Josh Okogie for him, it could be very intriguing in that way.
Yeah, and I mean, he only played 16 minutes a game. So for anybody that looks at the raw numbers and like 4.5 points per game, no thank you. He wasn't playing very much because they were making way for their new rookie center that they have. Looney is a guy that interested in me last year. He interested me over the summer when I thought that he might hit free agency as a vet minimum pickup. just because he's still one of the more switchable defenders in the NBA. He's not as quick off the step as he used to be, but he's still a decent rebounder. He's still a good screen setter. And it was just a couple of years ago that he was helping them win a championship as their starting center, who was absolutely dominant on the boards, especially on the offensive glass. If you remember that series against the Celtics, he was just crushing people on the boards. So again, if you're looking for a potential upgrade over Nurk who can actually stay on the floor in a playoff setting, Looney might be closer to that guy. He only makes $8 million. So, if you're giving up Josh Okogie and getting a potential alternative to Nurk in the playoffs in a tough matchup, that makes sense to me. If you're the Warriors, again, the bottom kind of has to fall out a little bit, even if they're making way for minutes for their new rookie center.
Let's be honest. I think the bottom very well could fall out.
I don't know,
in
man.
Golden State.
I think they might be better than they were last year.
I don't know. They've put a bunch of Flex Seal on things, and you got hope that it actually holds, right?
Clay wasn't great last year.
He wasn't.
I do not think that when you look at,
I like Buddy Hield and DeAnthony Melton, and there was another
Kyle Anderson.
Chris Dunn, or was he with Clippers?
Chris Dunn's Clippers. Kyle Anderson is Warriors.
Anderson, that's who it was. Yes.
I feel like they're trying to hold on to some glory by giving themselves Walmart Clay, even though last year Clay was Walmart Clay.
Yeah.
I don't look at them as a team, and I could be completely wrong. It wouldn't be the first time, but I don't look at them as a team that is going to be doing anything spectacular. So maybe they are looking to pave the way for some minutes for other guys. Corey Kispert's a name that I find intriguing, makes significantly less than what Okogie's making. And if you threw some kind of draft compensation, I'm sure the Wizards might seriously consider it.
Yeah, so, even like a second round pick maybe. But I don't know, though, because he did average like 13 points a game. So maybe they're just like, you got to do a little bit better than a second, maybe 2 seconds. But good 3-point shooter, efficient role player. Played 80 games, so that's good. Availability is the best ability for a team like this. I do kind of worry, like, he's only 6'6". He plays the 3 spot. Doesn't really bring a lot on the boards. You kind of need wings that can actually board on this team that's already undersized. That's my one concern.
You're worried about a 6'6" 3? Aren't we starting?
No, yeah. So maybe backing him up with another one wouldn't be the move.
You just keep it going the same way on both things. Look, the 3-point shooting is obviously what intrigues me, and that you don't have to question, is the bottom going to fall out in Washington? The bottom can't be any further to the ground than it is right now. Washington definitely will be looking at making some moves. So if you're not getting anything out of Okogie, maybe finding another guy that could be a shooter, because again, the old adage, you can never have enough shooters, is 100% true, especially in today's NBA. Yeah. I know Kenrick Williams, though, is a guy from the Thunder that it seems like his name every year comes up with this. So,
yeah, I'll retire it one day. Look, he didn't play very much last year. He played a lot of games, but didn't play a ton of minutes for the Thunder. And in the playoffs, he kind of got phased out of the rotation. But he was efficient, both from the floor, from 3-point range. He's a guy that plays bigger than his size, which would be helpful. He helps on the glass a lot. He's just a solid glue guy. And you wouldn't be making this move, to immediately slot him into the playoff rotation, which is where I kind of have qualms about, okay, are you just making a lateral move to make a move? But I don't know. If Okogie's not really working out and you want to bring in a change of pace, I think Kenny Hustle would be at least worth a look.
And he'd have the best beard on the team the second he got off the plane from OKC.
Yeah.
Hell of a beard that he has. Cody Martin, another guy that you had kind of looked at here from the Hornets that you had.
This is a buy low. This is a buy low candidate for sure. When you look at the shooting splits, they weren't great. When you look at the fact that he only played 28 games due to injury, this would basically be, you are really banking on him having a bounce back season fully healthy. Which, to be honest, I think, again, this is looking down the road, so they are going to see what Josh Okogie brings for a couple months and whether he has a place in Bud's rotation. But if he doesn't, and you need some help on the wing, I would rather go for his brother Caleb in Miami, but I don't think they're going to give him up. So
we're going to get the lesser brother again.
Yes,
Yeah, all right. Traditions live on here in Phoenix.
It's tough.
I got to give you a hard time because there's a name on this list that, like, I want to smack you with that mic for putting on here.
What?
Kelly Oubre Jr.
What?
Really?
He was good last year.
Really? No.
He was good last year.
No, I don't know. I don't want Kelly back.
Eric, was Kelly Oubre Jr. good last year, or was he good last year?
He was good.
He was good last year.
Especially, who was it that he said some expletives to? It was like the Sixers Clippers game. And he was like, you suck. But maybe a little bit more intense than that.
He basically told the ref that every member of their family was a hoe.
He took his assless chaps and the horse, and he left town, and I'd like to keep it that way.
Come on, man.
Especially for Lindsay's safety.
The Kelly Oubre hate.
So,
oh, no.
There's some other names that would work. Like, you have Dario Saric on here from the Nuggets, which, the homie could be something interesting if you get to that point. And our favorite, one Torrey Craig.
Craig.
You could do it, and you could probably get something else as part of the deal too, as Torrey only makes $2.8 million.
Yeah, well, see, that's the tough thing is all of the Suns like vet minimum guys are all like $2 million. So anybody that's on the vet min or a contract that's like around that range but slightly above it, you couldn't trade for. So we'd have to combine Torrey with somebody. I'm sure we could figure it out. I was looking at the Bulls roster, and it didn't look great in terms of who would work here or make sense. But yeah, I mean, there's so many names here that like dollar-wise match up, but just don't make sense either because the other team would want more or because like just a variety of reasons. The trade market's going to be rough with all these apron rules now.
Give me Torrey Craig just for the laugh.
Just for the laugh.
Just for the content.
Hey, he would have some place to fit in on this team.
He would.
Like, he doesn't not help.
They need a 3-and-D wing, and he's shot his best percentages here. He had a good shooting year last year, too.
He's a good rebounder.
Yeah, good rebounder.
Trade Nurk for Torrey Craig. Start Torrey Craig at center. Season saved.
Has some social skills, you know.
Someone asked about Brandon Clark. Stop it.
Hey, he's a stallion in some ways. All right.
It.
Oh man.
Someone asked about Brandon Clark. He makes $12.5 million, so he'd probably be in Grayson's price range. Or if you could, I'd have to look at the Grizzlies' salary. Maybe stack someone else on top of him, and then he would be in Nurk's price range. But I don't think Brandon Clark and like a Santi Aldama really is worth trading Nurk at this point.
Axel wants to know if Torrey Craig and Megan Thee Stallion for Mason Plumlee works. I don't think so.
We have to check the new CBA.
Yeah,
sorry.
Check the new CBA.
What is she making per year?
More than Torrey Craig.
Yeah,
true. Probably more skilled as well.
Yeah.
I want to give a shout out to one of our diehards, if you don't mind. I was driving home yesterday, and on one of the undisclosed freeways that cuts through the East Valley here in town, and I'm zoned out. Right, yesterday was a long day. I didn't sleep the night before real well, so going down the road, and my Slack pings on my Discord pings on my phone, and I see I'm honking at you on said freeway. And I'm like, what in the actual? So I look, and it's our friend Colin DeWitt, and he said, quote, "I've been frantically honking at your car on the freeway. I saw your license plate and thought, no way, that's a coincidence." I'll just say it. My license plate is on PHNX, and it's a Suns plate. So he realized it, and I was like, okay. So he pulls up next to me on the freeway, rolls down his window, he goes, "I'm listening to the show right now."
That's amazing.
And I'm
Colin.
like, thank you. So, I guess if you see me, the moral of the story is if you see me on the freeway, I'm not ignoring you. I'm just very locked in at staring ahead, and, honk if you want.
What's kind of concerning in all of this is the fact that it wasn't a car honking at you that got your attention.
Right.
It was the Discord ping.
That is a little
that's
alarming.
a
You're allowed to
little
have
it was
Discord.
plugged into my stereo, so it went off
Oh,
in my
okay.
car. Like, I'm
It's
sorry,
a
but
little more defensible.
honking,
Dude, I hear a honk anywhere near me while I'm driving, and I'm on edge. I'm looking like, where
means
was
because
that?
Eric's driving must stink. You must be a
mean,
bad
I've
driver.
seen you park, bro. Don't come
Hey,
at me. Don't come at
Hey,
me.
my parking's not good, but my driving is just fine. Thank you very much. So I'm on
Is
a
that why you were zoning out while you were on the
I'm
freeway?
a freeway. Like, honking is just like, that happens all the time on a freeway.
Well, that
It
means
didn't
you're not a
catch my
great driver if
attention.
you're getting honked at all
I
the
didn't
time.
say they were honking at me, all right?
I think the moral of the story is both you and Colin need to be safer in the car.
Yeah.
That's what I'm hearing from this.
I mean, Colin did text a whole message there. Sorry for ratting you out, Colin, but
Join
thought I
our
had to share
diehard
that.
Discord, guys.
Yeah.
It's just, you can DM me while we're on the freeway together. It's a great time for all. Eric, do you want to read us some of these super chats?
Yeah,
that we
let's
can
do
go
it.
through?
Let's start with Grant. Thank you, Grant. 499 says you can move Grayson for Wendell Carter Jr., move Nurk for a wing such as Rui or Dorian Finney-Smith. We don't really need more guards, so Grayson can be expendable for the right move.
I struggle with, are the Magic going to trade their starting center for Grayson Allen? I don't know if the need for 3-point shooting is that dire.
I mean,
Can
they
you line up
do
a
need shooting. But
They-
I don't know if it's to the point where you lose your big man.
No,
They
and
were one of the worst
spent-
3-point shooting teams.
They were, but then they added 3-point shooting over the summer. So, like, do they still need Grayson? Are they willing to give up Wendell for him? I don't know. Can you line up a second move with Nurk for a wing? The Lakers are in the tax apron, so they can't take back more money than they send out. So that's tough.
Well, and can you afford to make one move without knowing the other one's definitely
You have to
gonna happen,
line them
right?
up. You have to line both of them up, and it has to be early enough in the season to where making that much drastic change leaves you time to, get your continuity in order and whatnot.
Well, and to me too, you also have to trust both of those other GMs
To
that
not,
nobody's backing out at
Yeah.
the last second. Just
Mhm.
in some ways to potentially try to screw you too, because
Yeah.
there's mind games that happen with all this stuff too.
Mhm.
So, like, I don't know, and I'm not trading anybody to the Lakers. I'm sorry.
Well, that's fair, but
Yeah.
I do think that speaks to the fact that, like, yes, Grayson is probably their most expendable, valuable asset. Like, a lot of guys could be expendable, a lot of guys could be valuable, but in terms of the most likely to be traded just because he would have value and because you could move him because of the depth that this team has at that position, Grayson is probably that guy.
What else do we got, Eric?
Got Leo 199. Thank you, Leo. Love this idea. Any chance we trade Nurk for Wemby?
It does work salary cap wise, so I don't see why not.
If there was a franchise that would be able to turn Nurk into exactly what you need, it's San Antonio.
Yeah,
so maybe
take him, Greg.
maybe they take a swing on that.
Wemby is
Alright.
basically just Nurk with a Nike deal, right?
I mean, more or less,
It's
right?
more bull with a Nike deal.
Okay,
so.
okay.
He's like
And the
Bobo and Nurk
coolest-
combined.
The coolest shoe logo in the history.
It
of
is
shoe
really
logos.
cool.
What's the last one? Here,
Last
Eric?
one from our good friend Psycho Blue, $10. Thank you, Psycho Blue. Says Basketball Cthulhu says you'd be surprised how many decent players suddenly become affordable on bad teams come January, especially if they just got new GMs cleaning out the old GM's draft picks.
It can happen, but I will caution against that line of thinking because in recent years, with the play-in now, a lot of teams that would normally be, frantic sellers at the trade deadline are still in a position to potentially make the playoffs, and I think that's changed things a little bit. Also, the first and second apron tax, I do think that's going to make for a much more boring trade deadline than we were expecting, just like it made for a much more boring free agency than we normally see. Axel said, give me Jeremy Grant. Jeremy Grant makes too much money, unfortunately. So
that's just a general statement.
yeah.
Jeremy Grant makes too much money.
Well-
not in regards to trade. No, just makes too much money. I think that's fair to say.
Yeah.
I don't think GMs are going to be inclined, even if they're inheriting some of these more affordable contracts for younger guys, to move off of old GM's draft picks with these aprons now, because if you could potentially have a guy on an affordable contract that can produce for you, even if it's maybe less than you had originally hoped when they were drafted with the franchise, you may be more inclined to hold on to them a little bit longer to see if you can get something out of them, because controllable contracts at a cheap price are at a premium in this league right now. The dynamics on all of that have so significantly changed because of these aprons that I think it's going to dynamically change, to your point, the way in which things are handled from the GM seat. Any other thoughts on this? I know this was kind of a giant thought experiment, and we've done these kind of things a few times. Do you feel, though, that this team needs a move in the near future, or is this all contingent on, like we talked about, exactly how do you start?
I think there will be needs that arise, and I think we could right now predict what a lot of those are going to be. Another 3-and-D wing would be a big one. An upgrade at center or more center depth will be another one. Maybe point of attack defense. Like, those are things that are probably going to pop up. But I do think like this roster is in a better place than it was heading into last season. And I do think like you said, this was a thought experiment because we do need like 1 to 2 months to evaluate what the Suns have, figure out what rotations look like, what needs they still have. And that's true for, 99% of the teams in the league. It feels like they spend those first few months evaluating, and then come trade deadline or even December, it's like, okay, we need to act on this. We need to hop on this. And you got to survey the market too. Cause like I said, some of these guys that look good now might not look very good in December, and vice versa. Some of these guys that were like, nah, we're good on that guy, maybe they have a career year, and suddenly you're looking at them like, oh, we should probably get on that.
Yeah, no, I think we will see some swings in opinions on a lot of guys over the next couple of months to start the season. But for me, I'm a believer in stand pat for now, because you need to see what they look like under Coach Bud.
Yeah.
Because Grayson may look otherworldly, and some of these things we talk about could just look ridiculous come a few months from now because of what he's doing in Bud's system. You never know. Nurk may actually look like a new guy in this. Am I counting on it? Probably not, but that may be, where everybody's like, whoa, I have a whole new perspective on him as well. I want to see how this plays out for maybe even to the trade deadline, maybe not even December, and just see what can Coach Bud cook here in Phoenix. Look, if you want to cook and become the best version of yourself you can be as a sports fan, that is. I'm not promising you enlightenment or life. I'm just saying become a diehard here at PHNX. Gerald is going to have a fantastic article for diehards only tomorrow. He doesn't know this yet. I'm just telling him he has to do it. No, I actually know what he's writing, but you're going to want to read this piece. So go to gophnx.com right now and become a diehard. It's going to be well worth the price of admission. You're also going to get a free shirt or hat of your choice. You can get discounts to all of our events. You're going to be part of that diehard Discord. So if you want to yell at me on the freeway that I'm not paying attention to you, you can, thanks to being a diehard. And you're also going to get that exclusive content that Gerald puts out there. And I wrote one piece, so you're going to get like one more in the next 11 months from me as well. So you'll get all of that. Gentlemen, I appreciate you being along for the ride again. I know that it's only two of us right now, but I like the intimacy. 2.5. We'll count Eric as a half.
Yes.
Since you can't
It's
see
the
him.
nicest thing you've ever said about me.
Yes.
Okay, white noise.
Yes. And Lindsay is on vacation, for everyone asking in the chat.
And Saul got promoted and
Saul
Flex
got
retired.
promoted, Flex retired.
Everybody's fine.
It's
Everybody's
fine.
happy.
Maybe Lindsay's on vacation.
Yes.
We'll find out.
And we have some exciting announcements in the coming weeks. So just stay tuned for that.
And so we'll preemptively say this. I'll be on vacation next week.
Yes.
So Gerald will be here alone, essentially. So just so you're aware as well. As Leo says, we're just a handful of days away from Media Day.
Yes.
It's on Monday. That means basketball is almost back.
Thank God.
We can talk about real things going on with our favorite team. And we're just a handful of days away, a week from Sunday, from seeing them on the court in the preseason opener. So let's buckle up. Basketball is almost back, and we're going to get ready for it. So you can follow the man behind the Mac, Eric Ruby, at Eric Ruby. That's Eric with a K. You can follow Gerald at Gerald Bourget. You can follow the show at PHNX_Suns. You can follow me at Espo And hey, Jacob, I did it all right today, on time. Ahoy, hoy.
We all silly like the mayor.